of having Master Sergeant Brett Kaiser with us, albeit it's 2 a.m. there in his part of Japan. Thanks for being the trooper, Brett, and helping us out. So Brett come to us from the 730th Air Mobility Squadron, where he's the Air Terminal Operations Center Section Chief. And so some great responsibility. They make the things happen over there. And without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing, Brett, and I'm going to let you drive.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the introduction, for letting me invite me to this. I'm really excited to share the story because I think it affects not only the innovators out there, but also the leaders and how we foster a better innovative environment. So let me see. Can you all see my screen right now? There we go.
Yep, there you go. Thanks, Brett.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, I'm Sergeant Kaiser, and I competed in at the AMC Phoenix Spark Tank and as well as the Air Force Spark Tank. And so my idea, just a quick wrap up, was the K Wedge, which is a C-17 loading aid. And so I'll just jump right into it. Let's see here. So basically, if you don't know what it is yet, port dogs all around the community, and from as long as I've been in, whether it's at Dover, Hickam, Korea, or LUD, these exposed rails on the C-17 are constantly struck, because as you can see in the picture, there's no actual physical protection for them. So a pallet will come on, strike them, and damage them. And when that happens, this is what it looks like. We have rails that are bent, torn off. And so we're not able to lock in pallets in those positions. So pallets get bumped off the flight. It's a safety issue. And so I just thought to myself, why don't we have something like the C5 has the A-frame, but the C-17 doesn't have anything. So together I collaborated with the Expeditionary Maintenance Squadron, Staff Sergeant Davis and Tech Sergeant Trevor Bittner, and together we created the K-Wedge, which is a 3-piece loading aid that you can install on the aircraft floor, just like the C5 A-frame. And it actually is pretty simple. We use right now a strap, but it's being reverse engineered at Robins Air Force Base to have a locking handle on it, which I'll get into later. But you can see for the side rails, those are the ones that really get torn up. When it comes to pallet spinning, knocking a pallet too hard against that will knock the rail back. And so the side ones, you can see the loading aid will run alongside of the rail system to reinforce it for that as well. And so basically we tested it for 2 months in LUD from 1 November to 31 December, launching 29 missions, 330 cargo pallets, and having 0 rail mishaps and 0 K-Wedge defects. So it's basically our proof of concept, and it was awesome and exciting to do that. And we got so used to using it out there that when aircraft were coming into LUD, they would actually call into ATOC and say like, hey, we want the K-Wedge out here, which is pretty cool. So that was kind of our branding, I guess. But I wanted to just share some tips from my experience from Spark Tanks, both of them, the AMC Phoenix Spark Tank as well as the Air Force Spark Tank, to better help out the young innovators out there and also give us a little bit better insight on what helped me out during my experience. And so the number one thing that I was very lucky to have was support from squadron leadership. Chief Master Sergeant Jeremy Fisher and Lieutenant Colonel Michael Ridley, they were an awesome squadron leadership team. And so I was actually got done with some PME recently, and we talked about the PEP cycle, and that's a panic, elation, panic cycle. And so you can kind of apply it to innovation as well, because when you come run into a problem, it's like, oh, I can't solve this issue. That sucks. And so then you'll get to the elation, like, oh, I might have a good idea to assist with that. And so at this point, this was critical because my squadron leadership stepped in when I brought this idea to them, and I was like, hey, like, I have an idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but what do you think? And they were super excited, and they're like, yeah, tell us what you need and we'll make it happen. And right there, that gave me the energy to run with it and try and figure out on my own, like, how are we going to do this, and to partner up with other people, since we had limited commercial resources over in LUD. And that stopped me from reaching the panic last phase, which is, they're right, this idea is never going to work and it sucks. So I think as leaders, like, we need to be able to open that communication, and really when someone brings something to our attention, you need to emulate what Chief Fisher and Colonel Ridley did. And that's, like, absolutely, whatever you need, let's figure out a way to yes. But I think that that helped me out immensely. And then number two was open communication. So I was able to openly reach out and talk with Mr. Hirschman, Mr. Hammerly, Master Sergeant Mendoza, and the team to really bounce ideas off of and with my presentation. And they were absolutely phenomenal with getting us set up for the AMC Phoenix Spark Tank down in Orlando. And so I threw Miss Lay Method in here as well because I met her after the AMC Phoenix Spark competition. She gave me her business card and said, if you need anything, reach out. And so I did, and I probably should have ran that through my leadership since she's pretty high up in the AMC organization, because I needed GO81 data to show how many times these rail mishaps were occurring. So yeah, I reached out to her directly. She was happy to help and actually got me the data very quickly. So special thanks to the AMC team. And I think that our AMC Phoenix Spark competitors are very lucky to have the team that they have, because I think that anytime the response time was very helpful, especially being so far away and so separated geographically. That open communication was definitely key. The next was local and AFWERX Vegas pitch prep. Darley Kelly from AMC met me at AFWERX Vegas, but before that, we were actually, my local leadership as well as my group and my wing in the 521st AMAL. They drilled me and drilled me and drilled me. Basically, we set up a presentation which changed 50 times. And yeah, they really got me set up and built a foundation to make sure I wasn't going to fail. And then AFWERX and Miss Darley Kelly, I can't say enough great things because they really drove it home and gave us the confidence that we had to go out on that stage and with the Secretary of the Air Force, with the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, General Goldfein, and pitch it. So that right there is really key. And I think that if the competitors that are selected to go to be the top 4 for the AMC Phoenix Spark, it's going to be different this year. It's not going to be like last year where you actually get on a stage and you have that huge audience that you're looking to a sea of people. But I think it's going to be different. It's more challenging with the COVID environment. So there's going to be some unique opportunities to display your ideas and do it well. So that right there, I think is key. And if you haven't started prepping now, then it's probably time to. And so just to throw it out there, I'm definitely willing to help anyone who wants any kind of pitch prep. And again, can't say enough about AFWERX Vegas and Ms. Darley Kelly. It was awesome. This was a big one for me. So, when you create something, it becomes yours. You're very excited. You want to be able to, carry it on with you. And I had to detach in a lot of emotional investment from your idea, because people are going to, come up and say, oh, this sucks. We don't need this. You guys just need to be more careful pushing pallets on planes. I mean, I've heard it all when it comes to it. And so I had to learn to take a step back, detach the emotional investment, and let the data talk for you. So I wasn't able to do that until Miss Lay Method, gave me the data that I needed. But it was a really big learning, really good milestone in learning this process, because I took it on as a challenge where people said, hey, this isn't going to work, or this sucks. And all right, well, why? And then try and find ways to, as a challenge, to be like, okay, well, I had to tweak the design of the cable a few times based on some good constructive criticism. But I think that you need to take that open criticism and use it to your advantage, and really take a step back and say, don't put too much emotion into it. And then 5, relationships matter. So my very first commander, Colonel Heather Cook, she had the motto, we as port dogs have the motto, safely by the book on time. And she put with a smile. And that really resonated with me, because with a smile, it's all about relationships, and it wouldn't have been possible without the teamwork that I had, because it really is your greatest asset. So even being in a deployed environment like IUD, I went in and met the 379th Expeditionary Maintenance Squadron. And the first time I went in there, I didn't ask them for anything. I just wanted to introduce myself and see what capabilities they had, learn their names and everything. And then I came back at a later time and asked if they wanted to team up on and partner for this idea that I had. And they were more than willing to jump in there and be a part of the team, and really made this a success, because without them, I'll be honest, there would be no project without them having open communication. So yeah, relationships will carry you a long way. And so just be mindful that any one negative meeting, one negative comment, or that could ruin potential connection that you have that'll help you out. And so I think these 5 things, I really leaned on them hard when it came to the competition itself and when it came to trying to drive the point home of why we need this innovative tool in the Air Force. And so, but definitely I would say relationships is what makes the Air Force go round, and this really is the biggest team sport. And so we really need to rely on each other and this collaborative network to get ideas out there. Another hurdle that I had to overcome was being in LUD was the fact that I was geographically separated. So for the AMC Spark Tank, Phoenix Spark, I had to travel, to Florida, which was awesome, take a little vacation, travel back. And then a couple months later, they're like, hey, notification, you're going to, the Air Force Spark Tank. And then I found out that I was going to AFWorks. So then had to take that really rough TDY to Vegas, and but use it to the advantage, and was able to take some leave afterwards back in Hawaii. And actually, when I was there, I was still refining my my pitch and my presentation. And a shout out to the 735th AMS, Chief Bunny and Colonel Kostrobala. I was able to pitch to them, and they actually helped me out even further to tweak the presentation. So that was great. Then traveled back to Florida, where I was able to pitch, and then flew all the way back to LUD. So all in all, with leave total, it was about 40 days I was gone. And so I know that it's different now with the COVID environment, so it's going to be virtual, so it probably won't be as many days. But I hope that everyone gets that same AFA experience where you get on stage, you get to pitch this to senior leadership, because it really makes an impact. So just to wrap things up, huge thanks to my fellow Port Dog community as well as the AMC staff for rallying online votes. We tied for second place in the competition. And even though we weren't able to convince one of the judges, that this idea was the bee's knees and they need to vote for it and implement it now. Chief Wright said it himself. He goes, yeah, like, I don't know why we're not already doing this. And it just makes sense. And so I think that a good talking point on this is the fact that they're trying to advance ideas that need a lot of help. And so it seems like with the K-Wedge and everything like that, like we were already at a point to where it was more like testing and getting it approved and on the aircraft. And so there were some awesome teams. I'll say that the teams on stage right here, every single one of them, none of us were like against each other. None of us were competing and trying to outdo one another. Honestly, we met in AFWorks Vegas and worked together, and we're giving each other pointers. And it really did feel like, all 5 of us were working together to help each other out, because all of us were terrified to go on stage and do what we had to do, but we all executed flawlessly. And so it was awesome. Tied for second place and won the popular vote. And then the K-Wedge has been featured. Air and Space Magazine did an article, and there's been some AFWorks articles out there too to try and get the word out. But it was an amazing experience. Definitely glad to be where we're at now. So where we're at now is that the K-Wedge is at Robins Air Force Base, being reverse engineered and getting modernized a little bit. And then as early as next month, we could be testing the new version of the K-Wedge at Charleston or McGuire or some port stateside. But they haven't decided which one yet. And that's going to be a telephone conversation tomorrow with Air Force Material Command, and we'll figure it out from there. But that's where we're at. And it's looking like that we're going to have a earlier implementation than what we were thinking. So it was an amazing experience, and couldn't have done it without the support of all of you at AMC, my leadership, 521st AMAL, as well as my leadership at the 505 AMAL. And during this online campaign where we won the popular vote, I mean, we went all out with it. I was reaching out to every single mentor that I had, every person I've ever worked with, asked them for votes. It was like really an online crusade to try and bring it up. And we totally outdone the competition when it came to that online thing. So continue to do that as well for all you innovators out there that want to get your idea like well known. Reach out to people, use your leadership to reach out across the enterprise, and great things can happen. So yeah, again, thank you so much for your time, and I'll be opening up for questions now.
How many questions do you think you got asked when you did each of your pitches?
Is that on stage at AFA or?
Correct. When you were on stage and you got to the Q&A part, about how many questions did they throw at you?
So I think I was asked two questions. One question was about, it's hard to remember because honestly on stage it was a blur, totally blacked out up there. But we asked about, General Goldfein asked if, what's the scalability and like what other uses does it have? And I think he was under the impression that this can be applied to the C5 and the C130. And so I kind of explained a little bit that this is just specifically for the C-17's rail system, and this is why. And yeah, mine didn't have a whole lot of questions. I think the presentation did enough to answer a lot of all those ground questions. So that's why it was when top leadership reviewed it before we went out to AFA, they pretty much all was in consensus of why aren't we already doing this?
I have a question, Sergeant Kaiser.
Sure.
My name is Will Holmquist. I'm from Fairchild Air Force Base. I just stepped into the seat as the Innovation Spark Cell president. And so I'm wondering, what sort of role did your base Innovation Cell or Spark Cell have in your project? I know you mentioned a lot of the innovation committee members at AMC helping you out, but do you have a Spark committee in place at UCOTA that helps you out, or were you pretty much on your own on this one?
Yeah, so the project took place in IUD throughout its entirety. And so when we first got there, there was no Spark Cell stood up at the 379. Now there is, and there was about halfway through the project, but really between the time we started, I did the design of like how I thought that the loading aid should look like on Excel, just a simple little Excel document. And I took that to the maintenance squadron, and together we just, fabricated and just made some prototypes and tested it. And it took some trial and error, but I think from start to finish, it took us 6 weeks to really, and that's just doing it on our like sidebar time when we could. But it would have been helpful to have an actual local host space, Spark Cell, where I could have taken that, collaborated with other people across the base. I will say that it did. We have a innovation cell here at Yokota Air Base, which I'm now a part of, called Yoko Works, and so we're actually doing a soft opening today. It's 2 a.m. now, so yeah, today. For the wing commander to come by, and so they have 3D printers. They have a really good collab space. Some great technology, and that's exactly what we want to do. I think is what you're getting at, is where we want to bring people in to a space where they can sit, they're comfortable and can pitch ideas, and have tools available to them to create something and really conceptualize ideas that they have. And not only that, but link up, have people across space who have skills like coding or software design, something of that nature, and create a list of where we have people with skills and people with ideas and try and connect them. So that's a real big picture there.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Hey, Brad, it's Shane. We talk about intellectual property. What would you learn from it? Because we're learning more and more as we've done this. This is our second competition we're putting on, but it ends up being a big deal. So, and I know you were working on a patent, but do you just want to discuss that?
Absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up. So when in the early stages of building the prototype, I actually got with a lawyer in California, and I actually paid out of pocket. It's about $1,500 to patent the idea, get a provisional patent application, which will pretty much safeguard the idea for up to a year. So that way Boeing or, no one else can move in and, move in on the project and the loading aid. And so we wanted to do, and not only that, but there's other competitors out there as well. So wanted to protect it. And so spent my own money to do that. And then figured out that if you make anything, this is just a gee whiz, you make anything in the Air Force using Air Force time, resources, facilities, it's pretty much Air Force intellectual property. So if you want to create something that you're going to be able to claim and be able to leverage and make money off of, it needs to happen in your basement, away from base, using your own time, your own facilities and equipment. But we were able to sign that patent over. I worked with some gentlemen at Air Force Material Command, and they were actually very happy that I did the legwork for the original patent application. So I basically transferred it over to them, answered probably over 200 questions about it so that they could do sketches and do everything for the patent process. And now I believe they've already filed to secure that for the Air Force. So there's an option that you have where you whenever you create an idea, you have to disclose it to the Air Force. And so you have two options. You can either try and go up and say, this is my idea, I made this, it's my intellectual property, and then a board will review it, or you just sign it away. And it was pretty easy and clear cut that everything that I used was of the Air Force to make this thing. So I just signed it over. And yeah, that's when it comes to that, you got to disclose it, and it's use Air Force property and equipment. Yeah, it's the Air Force's.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. If anyone else has any questions, if you don't want to ask them on the call, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get those over to Brett, or you can email him directly. Have a couple questions here from others that have been proposed. What barriers have you encountered along the way, and what have you done to overcome these challenges?
I think the biggest barriers that pretty much had to overcome was let me think. There's a few barriers. I think it's really just figuring out like the best way to get the idea off the ground. I mean, when you're talking about dealing with aircraft and modernizing an aircraft, there's a lot of like layers that you have to go through. I had no idea what a SPO was before this process. I didn't know that you had to submit a was it AMC form 1067 to request to modernize something like an aircraft, which is what you'd have to do to have, since we'd be storing the K-wedge on the aircraft, it's made and used on the aircraft. So I think that just that knowledge piece of kind of understanding the big picture, and there's more than just port dogs like that have to approve this. And so yeah, that was one of the hurdles, was just my lack of understanding when it comes to that. So something great that Chief Fisher did, he's like, hey, stay in your lane. You create this loading aid, do what you need to do. Work in the gray area, which is what we did. So like I said, we didn't have a signed 1067 to operate the K-wedge on the aircraft. We kind of worked in the gray area where we did it on Apex missions, to where the 2T2s technically own the iron until the air crew shows up. So that's how we got our numbers and everything to use it on the aircraft without it technically being like illegal. So yeah, some people weren't happy about that, but we had to be able to test it and improve the concept somehow.
Thanks, Brett. Anyone else have any questions for Master Sergeant Kaiser?
Hey, Brett, it's Shane again. And I mean, for us, from our office, and I guess first thing I wanted to put out there was each wing has, you talked about Darla coming out there to Vegas to meet you, but each wing, so everybody knows, has a pitch coach. And Mr. Terry Fisher on the call today, he can hook anybody up with the pitch coach. And it doesn't matter if you submit it through AFWorks or a deal scale or whatever. Just make sure you define what your ask is. But I'll ask you, Brett, what could we have done better for you? Since this is our second year doing it, last year was our first year. How could we improve for you?
I would say, like, honestly, like, not, so you guys were the first ones, like my first experience, like we met at Florida officially, and I think there was great communication leading up to that point. I wouldn't say that to do anything different. I think the expectation for the innovators that in a non-COVID environment of going up on stage, you guys executed that flawlessly. I would say there was no, I think there was a little bit of leeway where we could have maybe messaged the fact that maybe reviewed some pitches, maybe have contestants upload their pitch on YouTube or some platform to where we could provide some kind of feedback to them. Because I know that when we did the AMC Phoenix Spark Tank, a lot of us, there was a few of us that have only had practiced, maybe a couple times before going up there. I know we had a few contestants that they said, we have 3 minutes to pitch, and I think they went into like the 5-minute realm. And at AFA, they would cut you off in a heartbeat, and they told us that too. Like if you go past 3 minutes, we're cutting you off. And so maybe just a little bit of, I think, to help the innovators out, having that pitch coach and knowing who they are, and then also kind of having maybe the AMC team like review it a little bit. But I think that even for the AMC Spark Tank, y'all did a great job preparing us. I mean, from the time that we were notified to the time we did it was only like what, 2 months? So if that, and so you integrated it very well at ATA. And so I would say personally, I would love to have the Spark Tank events happen on the first day of these conferences, because not being able to sleep for 3 days is kind of sucks, but
No, appreciate that. It's, you know, we want to improve our processes all the time. Also on this year's new complexity to it, but I'll address that here shortly. That's all I got for you, Brett. Good luck.
awesome. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for Brett? Okay, I'm going to, Brett, I want to thank you very much for doing this for us. You know, Brett mentioned something really interesting. You know, he saw the problem and he tackled it and came up with a great solution. And so all of you through your Air Force jobs, you're going to get, you're going to find problems sometimes. It's just like Sean Messer Bacaletta, who was the Air Force, he was the first Air Force Spark Tank winner. You know, he brought up a problem about the boom instructors and how they're having medical problems and the cushion need to be resigned, and his commander looked at him and said, "What are you going to do about it?" Right? And so he goes, "Okay, I'm going to fix it." And that's exactly what Brett did. He saw a problem and he addressed it and fixed it. So kudos to you, Brett. Thanks again for doing this. Let us know if we can ever help you in any way.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And just a sidebar, I actually reached out to Sergeant Bacaletta leading up to AFA, and he actually helped immensely. So definitely want to throw that out there to him. Huge resource. And that, to all you out there, reach out to people. You'll be surprised at the amount of support you get from your fellow airmen. So thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for all the support from the start of this till now. I want to get the story out there to help future innovators. So thank you.